Hi, everybody. Today's Wednesday, June 25th, 2025, and our friend Andrei Martyanov is back with us. Welcome back, Andrei.
My pleasure.
Andrei, I want to start with what has happened in the Middle East between Iran and Israel. And we had Donald Trump announcing a ceasefire, which didn't happen, by the way. They stopped attacking each other. There is no ceasefire. What has happened? I talked with Scott Rader that he said that both countries asked Donald Trump to find some sort of ceasefire, but he mentioned that Israel was begging for ceasefire. What's your understanding on what has happened between Iran and Israel and the way that the United States interfered in the fight and attacked Iran? From the Iranian sources, I've learned that they have informed Iranians before attacking the
Yeah,
nuclear. Yeah.
it's not
Go
only
ahead.
right sources. Yeah, it's essentially Trump stated as much actually himself and other news outlets. So at this stage, nobody has to take Trump seriously at all. He is a clown, actually, hot air balloon, and whatever he says is just discarded. It's gibberish, basically. It's self-aggrandizing statements about how great he is, and he's now, frankly, is a laughing stock. What happened between Israel and Iran is, I mean, I've been on record for years now. The foundation of Israeli defense policy is to get the United States involved. The foundation of the defense policies of Israel are APAC, American Israeli Political Action, Public Action Committee, all kinds of all those Christian Zionist groups which influence the American power, essentially executive and legislative. So that is why they needed to corrupt the U.S. Political system, which they did successfully. And the United States, is, pardon my French, is Israel's slap beach. That's what it is. However, yes, as I already stated, they are not good at fighting real wars. Real, and I mean real, when somebody shoots at you back with the weight of the salvo, so to speak, and fire impact, which equals yours, if not bigger and better. And Iran simply is better at that. They have a massive missile arsenal, and that's what Israel, this famous FAFO, screw around, find out. And this is exactly what Israel find out, because they do not understand what modern war is. They believed all those, pathetic marketing statements and claims about all those air defense systems, which turned out to be pathetically ineffective. And as the result, yes, it's absolutely correct. Israel begged for ceasefire, because now we have even the confirmation of this coming out from inside Israel. It's been turned into Gaza 2.0 in some places. So, and what can I say? They suddenly now, yesterday, the chief of the general staff of IDF says that, oh yeah, we're focused now against Gaza again. Okay, good luck. They go in back and they lose the column of the equipment and, allegedly those defeated Hamas. So, I mean, yeah, they wanted the real war, they got it. And Iran has their all necessary wherewithal. So in this case, it's nothing what wasn't anticipated. People were warning for years that you get in Iran big time, you get what Israel got, and basically, I don't know, they probably will not recover from this, at least in any time soon, if ever, actually. And you look attentively at some quarters of Tel Aviv or Beersheba, or it's just freaking like World War III there. So what did they expect? But they believed all this BS, emanating from the military industrial complex of the United States. Oh, we have those, air defense systems and all that. Iran used initially not even the latest of their ballistic missiles. Then more modern came in, and we all saw what was happening. So, and that's the result. What do you expect? I mean, you wanted the war, you got the war, and Iranians delivered.
Andre, what Israeli media, Channel 12, reported that Iran didn't use cruise missiles in their attack on Israel. We know that Iran has at least three types of cruise missiles, and everybody knows about. But why did they decide not to use them?
Why? When they are subsonic, and Obviously, when they fly, for example, they will fly through the, which was confirmed. Obviously, they exaggerated, as always, the Jordanian airspace, for example. And yeah, Jordan is essentially a shield for Israel. That's who Jordan is. It's also slap beach of Israel. And all those Arab monarchies, they are, well, prisoners to their own people. But yeah, they would probably blunt rather dramatically this salvo. And do not forget, you can essentially still use the modern fighter aircraft to intercept slow subsonic cruise missiles. And that's what actually Jordan confirmed. But they were intercepting their drones, which are even slower. They are much slower than cruise missiles. But yeah, you can kind of blunt the strike. And that's what Jordan did, for example. So Iran had no reasons to do that when they have the highly effective, especially latest generation of the ballistic missiles. Some of them now demonstrated their separation of the re-entry vehicles, which becomes MIRV. They are not nuclear, obviously, but even that, they showed the separation, which make them with the carriers of the MIRV, multiple independent re-entry vehicles. I saw one which was split in 3 or 4, I don't remember exactly, but it was there. They are approaching with their being the launch from fairly long range, especially from the eastern Iran. So it gets you about what, 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers. So they accelerate pretty good, by the time they burn out and go, into the ballistic flight. And so they approach the targets up to probably Mach 10, Mach 12. There is no system in the West which can intercept it. So, and as a result, we saw ourselves what was happening, apart from the fact that they were saturating the air defense and of Israel with slower and less, advanced ballistic missiles. And you could see it clearly even on the videos. But the devastation is absolute. I mean, it's horrible. Some people, even Zionists, Zionist sources, they are screaming on their whatever Twitter, X, whatever the hell the name of this thing. They're screaming that Israel was damaged into the hundreds of billions of shekels, and obviously much of the military damage Israel simply hides, which is kind of natural, So, but yeah, it's utter devastation.
Here is, Andrei, what Donald Trump said at NATO about the Patriot systems.
BBC News Ukrainian.
Where are you from?
I'm from Ukraine.
Oh,
so my
wow.
question to you is whether or not the US is ready to sell anti-air missile systems Patriot to Ukraine. We know that Russia has been pounding Ukraine really heavily right now.
Are you living yourself now in Ukraine?
My husband is there.
Wow.
And
I can see you're very, it's amazing.
And me with the kids, I'm in Warsaw actually, because he wanted me to be.
Is your husband a soldier? No?
He's
there now?
Yeah.
Wow. That's rough stuff, right? That's tough. And you're living here?
In Warsaw.
And you're a reporter?
I am.
Good. So let me just tell you, they do want to have the missiles, okay, as they call them, the Patriots. And we're going to see if we can make some available, They're very hard to get. We need them too. We were supplying them to Israel, and they're very effective, 100% effective. Hard to believe how effective. And they do want that more than any other thing, as you probably know. That's a very good question, and I wish you a lot of luck. I mean, I can see it's very upsetting to you. So
He literally said that the priority is Israel. What is the outcome? Because when in terms of the way that Zelensky and you see Netanyahu, all of they're asking for Patriot system. What are the capabilities of the Patriot system?
0 against modern missiles. 0. It's a pathetic junk, which is obsolete technologically. It can still shoot down the aircraft. It can, definitely. It may shoot down, depending on the elevation or altitude, the subsonic cruise missile. That's pretty much the range of its capabilities. It will not intercept any modern ballistic missile. I will quote again. Well, Trump, again, at this stage, Who takes him seriously? Nobody takes him seriously. The guy is hot air balloon. He basically purchased hot air out of himself, making things up as he goes. I mean, the guy doesn't even know what he's about to say himself. This is we are looking at the other, I mean, sheer case of the narcissism, which is a sort of, begin to border on the mental illness. But the point is, I will only repeat what I repeated many times. Direct quote from Lieutenant General Semyonov, who is deputy commander of the Russian airspace forces. Patriot cannot defend itself. Forget about defending anything else. Simple as that. It cannot intercept any Iskander missile, and especially new Iskanders and the longer range, and let alone hypersonics and modern ballistic missiles, especially the ones which maneuvers. Evidently, Iran learned how to make some of those missiles, warheads maneuver. So, yeah, good luck with this. It's useless junk, basically. That's what it is.
Andrei, when I look at this war between Iran and Israel, somehow if you follow how the war is started, and within 12 days they were articles in the mainstream media, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. They were talking about that Israel doesn't have, in 10 days they're gonna run out of missiles, the air defense missiles. How it seems that Netanyahu somehow convinced Donald Trump that he can do regime change by the initial attack on Iran. They haven't planned for a long run, for a war, for a continuous war with Iran. Because since then, we've learned from media that they have provided, the United States together with Germany, provided 14 weapon shipments during a week war between the two. It's a lot. You don't have anything to fight, and you want to go to war. You attack a country. It seems that it was all about regime change. They didn't see beyond that. They wanted to do regime change, and the final case, the worst case scenario, was the interference of the United States. If something goes wrong, the United States would come in and put an end to the conflict.
Nima, I wrote 4 books. I'm writing the 5th now about this. The horizon of the operational planning of NATO and those NATO generals, and especially Pentagon, who are incompetent. We can very clearly state this now. They are incompetent militarily. Is usually within the 2 months. They operate only on the templates. Most of those templates never have been actually put in real practice in real war, unless one considers the Gulf War, Turkish shooting 91 a war. So, and what can I say? Yeah, that's how they plan. And the United States itself, if it goes into the serious war, it will run out of the smart and long-range standoff munitions in about 2 weeks. So maybe 3. So that's about it. So, and Israel obviously ran out of it immediately. Do not forget, they also have had the battery of the THAAD, terminal high altitude, anti-ballistic defense, which also performed dismally. And different sources say that actually it was destroyed by Iranians. So, and yeah, they live in an alternative military universe, because essentially Israel is nothing more than outgrowth of the US power. It's essentially, with the exception of some things like grossly overblown, Merkava and tank and things of this nature, primarily it's all Western United States, and, so. And when you look at this, how do you even judge that? I read my latest book, America's Final War. They are incompetent. They don't understand what real military planning is. Evidently, they don't. Just to give you an example, very many people in Pentagon, which testifies to you about extremely low military educational level of U.S. military academies and war colleges, they bought this BS from Ukraine, that Ukrainian air defense, those Patriots, they shoot down daily all kinds of hypersonic weapons and everything. So it doesn't matter even if your models are correct. When you put the garbage in, what you get the garbage out. You get absolute alternative universe, fairy tales, things. You confabulate your own military history, and as the result, you go in with, thinking that you're going to be fighting some kind of the 5-year-old kid, and then 5-year-old kid comes out with this hairy, hugely muscled, Iranian, MMA fighter, and he begins to kick your butt, and suddenly there is a panic because obviously they never properly planned it. You can see yourself how IDF is not a real army. It's nothing more than gendarmerie, essentially the heavily armed police force. That's who they are. They are good at genocide of people who are primarily cannot fight. And even in Gaza, it's 20 miles by 5 miles. So it's about 100 something miles, square miles size area. They're still fighting there. So there you go. That's their planning. That's how good, quote unquote, they are. But evidently, looking at their curriculum or curricula of what is being taught in all those Western military academies and general staff colleges and things like that, it's all garbage. It's primarily, all those fairy tales about how the West, United States, and Western allies defeated Hitler. They don't study Russian military history properly because they cannot. It's like making devil drink the holy water, so because they are, it's the complex of inferiority also. So as a result, you get those nincompoops who say, like Netanyahu was in special forces, something like that. Special forces are not designed to fight the real war. They are designed to diversionary recon operations, which are just merely small part of the much larger thing, which is combined arms operations. And United States never had the experience with the scale, for example, of the combined arms operations, which they absorb in the special military operation. And they are afflicted by the severe case of the professional envy and jealousy, because and then suddenly they, for some reason, decide that, Israeli, no, you remember they beat the crap out of Arabs in 1967 and 1973. Well, sure, it's like going and fighting the 5-year-old kid in the sandbox. And so they made and modeled those things from losers, essentially. And it was again paraded, basically, as it was for 3 years. Russia demilitarized NATO. Now they don't have enough for Israel. And what is Israel? It's a 9 million population country. It's about half of the New York City, so, and even that, they cannot supply and resupply. The only thing they have is, as we discussed prior to coming on here, that's, Trump and his administration calls Tehran and say, hey guys, will you let us bomb you for PR action? That's the only thing they can do, PR. They cannot fight real war. They don't know how.
Yeah, because when these B-2 bombers went to Iran to attack, we've seen nothing to go against them. It was all about, they said to Iran they're gonna attack these sites. The Iranian government knew about it. They were somehow, it seems, Andrei, I don't know what's going on with the Trump administration. It's somehow so strange. It's many ways you cannot understand what's going on. Each and every day they're making new rhetorics, they're making new assumptions. There is no line to be pursued, to be understood. How do you think that the governments in Iran, in Russia, in China, they're confused about Trump?
No, they're not confused. Russians know who he is. And Russians actually not manipulated. They basically humiliated him non-stop, with especially this so-called negotiations. Today he was making, 24 hours was sarcasm. Sure it was, yeah. Then there were 100 days sarcasm, and said, I didn't expect it to be that difficult. Really? How about you go and learn the war? How about you read military, history books? He never read books. He maybe Playboy magazine, and that's about it. But he's a highly uncultured man, as most people in Washington, D.C. They are uncultured. They have all those degrees, credentials, but they know basically nothing about the world outside, because it's the feature, not the bug in the United States. They as I already stated, you could see the intellectual decline in the United States. And I live here for 30 plus years, and you can only observe it. First, it was relatively slow. And then after 9/11, the whole thing went down. I mean, with the exponentially, and with the negative coefficient, of course. And so you look at this, good Lord, these people are morons, and they are. And they are incompetent. Trump is incompetent. He doesn't understand what it means to be the statesman. He doesn't understand how to run the country. All this is about him, which is the acute case of the narcissism. And then he's surrounded, with minor exceptions, with the same nincompoops who are psychophants, essentially. They sing praises to his ego, and that's what it is. As a result, we have a circus. That is why he wanted to meet Putin how many times? And Russians politely were saying, no, we are let's do the technical job first, okay? And it's been actually in the open for the last half a year. It's literally in the open. You can see it. It's happening like in front of our eyes. And as a result, you get what we get. And these people, they still think in those, the self-aggrandizing categories. And as a result, everything falls apart. And he is very impulsive man, which is characteristic of this type, with a very much made up history about himself. So, and we have to face the reality that that's what America is. H.L. Mencken stated, famous 1920, that in the end, when the heart's desires or desires of our people will be met, and we will see the White House adorned by the downright moron. It's just prophetic. Come on, it's one of the greatest American journalists and wordsmiths, and that's what it does.
Andrei, when you heard this reporter asking Donald Trump about the Patriot system and the answer coming from Donald Trump, do you feel that his priority is Israel? Is he gonna, in your opinion, when it comes to Ukraine, is he gonna continue providing Ukraine with weapons?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. ISAR, yeah, they will be providing some weapons, but do not forget the whole issue of special military operation, which very many of those fanboys who basically love the explosions and Hollywood movies and graduated from the School of the Advanced Military Studies, Top Gun Maverick, they still believe that it's all about explosions. The whole special military operation after the April 2022. When the United States, by way of this idiot Boris Johnson, sabotaged negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, is about demilitarizing NATO. And NATO is being thoroughly demilitarized, as you correctly stated. I mean, whatever they ship to Israel, it's not sufficient. And it fails. It's not effective. And as the result, yeah, it's continuing. And today, report of the Financial Times, which, of course, is usually written by the morons from MI6 and RUSI, which is the Royal United Service Institute of Morons. So even they say, oh, actually, Russians, they probably accumulated more than 13,000 of missiles, and they can produce 200 a month, while these people have no clue what they're dealing with. It's way more than 200 a month, but how you can explain to some graduate of some degree million from Harvard or Oxford that dudes look up at the real actual industrial capabilities, and maybe you will understand what you're dealing with. They don't. They are morons. They have no reference point. They don't have academic and human experiences of dealing with this. But these are exactly the people who run the West, and they basically killing it. So, and they will continue to do that until it's over.
Yeah. Today, NATO Secretary General Rutte said that alliance can fund Ukraine war for another decade. Who's the alliance? You mentioned Donald Trump may use some sort of weapons to Ukraine, but as far as I know, last time they said if Europeans want to provide Ukraine with the weapons, they can buy it from the United States.
Well, yeah, that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea. And the problem is, of course, they cannot do this either. because United States, first, United States doesn't produce main battle tank. It doesn't have capacity. Yeah, those Abrams M1s, which are burning lovingly in special military operation, those are old tanks. They still have some left, obviously, in National Guard, but usually National Guard is the first one which throws all their material into the mayhem, so to speak. Then you have some armored divisions. That's about it. And then you have some in reserve or in conservation, which you can basically reinitialize, and they will go back into the front line. But that's it. They have nothing. They gave all those kits primarily for M1 to Egypt. Egypt basically assembles. But United States has no capability, for example, to produce a main battle tank. Whole combined European NATO, that means Germany, France, Netherlands, whatever, so they can produce about 40 tanks a year. It's it's one battalion plus about one company of the tanks. Russians produce 1,200 tanks a year. Okay, so and as I already stated, you are talking when what we need to start to recognize that anything which is stated by Rutte, by von der Leyen, written by some cretin from New York Times or Wall Street Journal, which are cretins, they employ cretins primarily. It's all garbage. The same as Trump, 100% effectiveness. It's like, I don't know. There should be people in Pentagon who will be cringing. I mean, they're not idiots there. There are still some competent people left there. It's just that you are literally, it's the parade of the fools. And what you have, this is a bunch of morons which runs in the arena of the circus for the whole world to see, and they're chasing themselves, dressed as with the costume of the Ronald McDonald, and that's what is this all about. And yeah, this is how basically empires collapse, and they can. And by the way, they want to double their expenditures by 2035, and honestly, Russians are sitting now with the buckets of popcorn, and there is a Homeric laughter you can hear from all over the place. I mean, sometimes you feel even embarrassed for yourself for people like Trump, but obviously nobody's going to be talking seriously to him.
Andrei, somehow it's so amazing to me. I know a lot of Iranians living in Israel. But recently, Russian president Vladimir Putin said that more than 2 million Russians are living in Israel. Do you understand why do these people, if they're living in Israel, what's the animosity toward they're Russian living in Israel? But
No,
why?
they're not Russian.
They're not Russian?
No, they are Russian Jews. So for a Russian to live in Israel, if you want to live in it, oh my God, you have to go through so many things, and you have to become essentially convert to Judaism, at least for starters. And even that is not enough. No. Those are primarily Russian Jews. So they are Russian citizens, but they are not Russians. They are ethnically, and they are, Jewish people, so, and that's the majority of them. There are some Russians who are real Russians who live there, but their number is minuscule. But majority of these are Russian citizens of the Jewish ethnicity background. So that's who they are. But they are Russian citizens, and Russia has to consider also defense of its own citizens and things of this nature.
But when it comes to Ukraine, they don't see any they don't seem to be Russian, because they're doing the Israeli government is totally, you look at this situation, they're literally in favor of Ukraine against Russia. They don't say it, they don't talking about, but they're doing everything.
Yeah, Israel is no friend of Russia. Israel is no friend of Russia. It's obviously no friend to the United States, but it's difficult to explain for the most people in primarily Israel-controlled media and fully Israel-controlled Congress, and now the president of the United States, who is it's America is done. It's not a sovereign country. Russians are a sovereign country, but they have to consider obviously the fact that they have about 2 million people who are Russian citizens. But Russians take a very strict approach on this issue. For example, that is why very many Israelis who have Russian citizenship, and they suddenly, for some unknown reason, decided to run back to Russia, they have to erase a lot of history from their smartphones, which, by the way, is the first sign that FSB and border guards look at. That means, and what was in those things which you erased? And that's primarily support for Ukraine, support, any kind of the terrorism against Russians and things like that. And those people are being turned away. And so they can go to Europe, they can go, but it's not like it is simple. It's not simple. It stopped being simple long time ago. So it is all progress. It's all dynamic. So it changes all the time depending on the circumstances. So but yes, there are Russian citizens, and they certainly can hope for what is called the consular service of Russian embassy and consulates in Israel, and they can return back to Russia. Those people who do not have any beef with against Russian people. Absolutely. There are many decent Jews who just, obviously, they wanted to live in a warmer and nicer climate. Now they want to come back, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, people look for escape from this catastrophe, which Mr. Netanyahu, and all those, bad crap crazy, the fanatics, brought upon Israel. So it is normal reaction of people to escape the danger, and especially such danger that Iran can flatten Israel if it comes down to it. It will take probably a couple more weeks, but Israel will be flattened.
Andrei, we've learned that Iran, the defense ministers of Iran, Russia, and China would meet in Beijing under the SCO summit. And it seems that the outcome of the Trump administration so far was somehow making or convincing these countries that there is no solution but being participating in some sort of collaboration through BRICS, SCO, all of these institutions that are so much important for the future, for the sovereignty of these countries that are part of BRICS, part of SCO. It seems that the Trump administration, because before he come into power, people were speculating that somehow he would be able to make some sort of cracks, some sort of divisions within BRICS. Still, somehow people are feeling that could happen with the case of India. I don't know. I think that Indians are much more sophisticated. They're so smart. They know what they want from any sort of relationship. What's going on in the mind of BRICS, SCO, and these defense ministers of Iran, Russia, and China?
We have to go back a little bit for the last year. And Mr. Putin, when he speaks, he never says things just because Mr. Putin feels like saying it. He went on record again 2 weeks ago, well, prior, already started on the 16th, I think. He said, we offered Iran military cooperation ranging from air defense systems and things. Iran declined. Well, we know why they declined. Mr. Alistair Crooks says about it. Very many people says because they didn't want to upset the United States and combined West, which obviously raises the question, Mr. Pezeshkian, I mean, who is he? I mean, who he is working for? So, but obviously when Supreme Leader, he essentially removed him from the decision-making circuit by transferring power, military political power to guards of the Iranian Islamic Revolution. That was basically the vote of their, they probably lost the trust. So then we have Mr. Arakchi going to Moscow, and we have Mr. Defense Minister of Iran spoke to Mr. Belousov, Minister of Defense of Russian Federation, 2 days ago. Now they're meeting in Beijing. Iran could be offered very much along the same lines as maybe not exclusively like what Russians did with their North Korea, because it is a full-blown military alliance now. But of course, considering the fact that there are some really serious big strata of the Iranian society which are highly pro-Western. They do not like Russians. They want to be integrated with the West. I mean, I don't know. They probably want to LGBTQ, or totalitarian regimes they installed. I mean, those people obviously are not very sophisticated when they talk about West. But the point is that now, most likely, especially after Mr. Arakchi spoke to Mr. Putin, and I wrote about it, that said, I don't know what kind of face he will be approaching him now, after Russia was actually not insisting, but offering constantly, get this, buy this from us. Let me get you back about 10 years ago, when for a very little short while, the sanctions have been lifted from Iran. Remember? This was like literally a few weeks. Guess what Iran did immediately? They practically broke off all economic and other contacts with the Russians and rushed to actually arranging contracts with the West, with the Airbus and things of this nature. Of course, immediately. Once this went into the action, it was shut down by the United States, and that was it. But it was very demonstrative of the actually intent and the mood of the Iranian society, at least in Tehran. So now there will be no of those games. Russians, while definitely Iran is extremely important for Russia, both as their economic future and neighbor, and all kinds of things which are related to the being very close to each other and being tied together by Caspian Sea. But this time there will be very simple talk. You want real protection? You want real roof? Well, there are some things you have to, accommodate in this case. And what this accommodation could be, it could be some kind of the reviewing of the military cooperation, which have to go now much deeper if Iran wants to be safe. One of them, which is not excluded, however, for now unlikely, is do they want to really be safe from Israel and the United States? Sign the military cooperation with Russia, place a couple of Russian military bases on the territory, and integrate them into the overall defense structure. Guess what? They will be safe. But then, of course, there will be discussion now if Iran wants to continue, which it will, nuclear weapons. And I don't know how they will be discussing it, but I think Mr. Netanyahu and Trump, being, dumbasses that they are, they achieved opposite effect. Iran now most likely will get nuclear weapon, will marry those nuclear warheads on the missiles, and that will be it for Israel, in terms of, trying to pretend that they are the foremost power. Well, they are foremost power among Arabs, but it doesn't take much to bribe Arab government. They are corrupt utterly, so that's what it is. And that's what will be the meeting between Chinese, Russians, and Iranians. Again, Russia was on record for years now. Get this, we can offer you this. There is only the rumor, which evidently there are some Su-35s. There have been some delivered, but I think, I don't know how many, 2, maybe 4 at best. That's about it. And evidently, that's probably the main reason why Iranians actually say that F-35s have been shut down. They haven't shut down most likely in the Iraqi airspace. And so the thing which I have to say there, yes, somebody has to take the reins of power. And Mr. Pezeshkian, he discredited himself completely. So I don't know, he was, when you have even the pro-Western liberal people in Tehran saying, screw that, let's get the bomb. Well, there you go.
I think the way that you've mentioned it somehow makes sense, because when you look at the behavior of these people who were somehow advocating to talk with the United States, at the end they saw what has happened. They know right now what would be behavior of the United States. If they can hit, if they can destroy you, they're going to do this. They're not going to care about negotiations, nothing of that
Mhm.
sort. They have to understand, these people that you mentioned in Iran who are advocating to be closer to the West, they have to understand that the West is not interested in any sort of prosperity. Donald Trump comes out, I want Russia and Iran to be prosperous, to have a
Yeah,
bright
yeah.
future.
And the guy, look, let's settle on
Propaganda.
this. Let's
If
settle
they
on this.
can destroy these countries, they destroy it in 2 seconds if they can do this.
United States and the West have no trust whatsoever. They are untrustworthy. Russians know that, and that is why there's this diplomatic, thing. And you know what? On record, including on your show from the last year, I say, what are Russians good at is they're pulling the gonads of the tomcat for as long as it takes. They will be, pulling this finger diplomatically. While remember, everybody were afraid that, oh my God, there will be a ceasefire. No, there will be no ceasefire. I said it from the get-go. They don't understand what Russia is and how Russians operate. Same goes for Chinese. They can continue to pull the gonads of the tomcat also for a long time, and you will have those people from State Department coming there and thinking that they make any kind of progress, but there will be no progress because actually Russians know about United States nowadays more than Trump administration knows about the United States, because it's completely different level of the competence and intellect and things like that. And that is why they couldn't, granted that Trump is not only impulsive, he's absolutely, I think he is gripped by fear. That is why he needs to assure himself constantly by producing this BS non-stop that everybody laughs at. Well, except for Ukrainians and imbeciles from Western press. But primarily he needs to constantly reinforce this because he is gripped by fear. That is why he was contacting the Tehran prior to this 37-hour flight of B-2 bombers and things of this nature, because he needs to constantly reinforce that he matters, that he doesn't. I mean, that's what I was talking about from the get-go. It doesn't matter who is in charge in the White House in the United States, because Russians, as the special military operation proved beyond any doubt that they are in the business of demilitarizing the combined West and looking for Europe to disintegrate primarily, economically and militarily, and then probably Russians will come in and will start picking up the pieces in terms of how you can communicate with the United States. There's nothing to talk about with Europeans. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. You cannot. These are, people primarily hearing Russian guts. With the United States, you have now man-child. He's a man-child. He's 79 years old. He has the maturity level of the 18-year-old high schooler. And Russians know this. The Russians absolutely know. They are not idiots. They have pretty darn good human intelligence, and they have all kinds of people who work in the psychology and psychiatry who obviously advise both intelligence services, Ministry of Defense, and President of Russia about who Mr. Trump and who people surrounding him are. And you cannot trust anything, nothing what he says. He lost any kind of credibility. Whatever little was before that, now you cannot even talk to the guy. He's lying, he's cheating, he invents things as he goes. He lives in the alternative universe, which is typical of in many respects, the mental deviations based on and we're talking about acutest form of the narcissism. I don't know how the guy didn't take the credit yet for winning Napoleonic Wars, or for that matter, for Reformation, Protestant Reformation, or Renaissance. And guess what? This is not out of the realm of the possibility that at some point of time he will say that, yeah, I was the guy who started the Renaissance and the essentially age of enlightenment in the Western civilization. Who knows? That's how bad it is. And people have to understand we are dealing with the child, petulant child who never experienced any difficulty in his life. He is just merely game show you know what, owner or whatever he was, and he is the real estate, New York real estate shyster. That means what? He has no culture, he has no sophistication, badly educated. He only knows how to make money and what feed his own very, very fragile ego. And we can see it now.
The chief of IAEA said that the priority for him is going to Iran. Lavrov said that they're trying to find where is those
Yeah,
enriched uranium, and they want to,
yeah,
according
yeah.
to Israel, to destroy. It's Andre. We talk about the United States, but all these international communities, organizations were corrupted by the
Yeah,
attitude of
utterly
the
corrupt.
United States. They destroyed everything.
Yeah.
Nobody would trust them anymore.
Grossi has Mossad, MI6, CIA written all over him. There's no place where there's not a banner there. You know what? Yeah, Surete, whatever the French, but BND, I mean, this is the guys. You literally have no enough space to stamp him, with whatever Russians yesterday in Telegram channel, they offered, why don't we send him with Scott Ritter to inspect and see how Scott at some point of time will actually lose the patience, we will beat the crap out of Grossi, So because I mean, it's utterly corrupt. Western civilization is done. It's over. What is happening right now? We see these floodgates opening, and we see again, this is civilization. It's not like it could happen within 10 months. It will take years, and it's taking years, but short years, not anymore those centuries, of the decline of Roman Empire and things of this thing. No. The information today travels instantly. We speak to you now, and we have all kinds of people listening to us all over the world. So this is what happened. And because information travels so fast, we see now the acceleration of this, not only decline, the West is disintegrating. And as I state many times, look at France. French probably will not exist as the unified country in 2050, by 2050. The same goes for UK, and the same now goes for the United States, depending on the circumstances, because obviously we already have, as many people correctly stated, Confederate moment. California doesn't live in accordance to the United States Constitution and United States federal laws. And so this is just the start. The next thing will be, Texas? I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see. But there are many what is called the centrifugal forces in the United States, which many people still cannot grasp. Trump certainly cannot grasp it. And many people do not understand that all those Bidens or Obamas, Trumps, they are the facilitators of this disintegration, of which many of us warned for a long time now, and now you have all facts and factors in place, and they are beginning to perform. And one of them is having the obviously mentally not adequate president of the United States. And he's not the first one. However, comparison to Biden is incorrect. You cannot compare him to Biden because Biden was a zombie. The guy didn't have a brain. He was manipulated by his also dumb as a cluster coitus, wife and the bunch of the, war criminals around him. So the guy was nothing. He wasn't even aware he was a president of the United States. So this comparison is incorrect. But yeah, look at this. We have, oh my God, you don't have any normal statesman since real statesman was obviously George H.W. Bush Sr. But that was it. He was defeated, and then guess what? We got the Free Willy, Funny Willy, the Bill Clinton, and off we went. And the United States now is falling. It's not on the precipice anymore. It's flying down, and it's sad to see it, but they destroyed the country.
Andrei, before wrapping up this session, when you look at the situation with the negotiations with the Ukrainians, do you think that at the end Russia would have to decide about the fate, the destiny, or what the outcome or the end of the conflict as on the battlefield? Is Russia is getting there? Is Russia is feeling that they have to decide about it on the battlefield, or they still see some sort of participation on the part of the United States that could diminish or that could reduce the suffering of Ukrainians?
No, battlefield. Russians are realists. Again, the special military operation between Russia and Ukraine stopped being this in April 2022 in the first Istanbul meetings. Russians absolutely correctly do not trust West whatsoever, which was evident. And no, it's the only thing it has is a battlefield solution, which is happening as we speak. And is people who are really competent and with a professional military background, they are looking at the factors which matter, not all this BS and hot air ballooning from all those European politicians who said, by the way, that frontline stabilized today at NATO meeting. There, Russians are stuck, and well, I mean, that's who they are. They're a bunch of morons. And when you look attentively at their officer corps of NATO, it's really sad. It's really sad, pathetic picture. Good Lord. I mean, and it will get much worse because you will have to, there's no real understanding of the modern war anywhere near in Brussels, Washington, or London. So, and that will continue to deteriorate, and until the last real professionals are removed, which is the normal procedure, modus operandi for oligarchy, they will be removing anybody who has any competency. And then we'll have the idiocracy. We are already, the wonderful movie. I love it, So, and we do have, essentially we're moving towards the end of the idiocracy, and when the whole Western civilization will simply disintegrate and will split into the bunch of the states which themselves will be split, like France, like UK, which there will be England left, there will be Scotland, which it's inevitable because they are becoming miserably poor. Many people do not understand how poor Europeans are becoming and how they will become even much more poor. And they will eventually occupy their proper place of the second world countries. They will have those galleries, maybe some cities preserved to go for the tourism, things of this nature. But primarily it will be dumpster, such as Paris or London, and this is where it is all going.
Thank you so much, Andrei, for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
My pleasure. Talk to
See
you
you
later.
soon, Andrei. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.